Back again, this is Fred for the Aviation Enthusiast, and today's video is a follow-up from the video I recently posted from Airwaysim, how to start a new game. Now basically I'm just going to follow up based on that video and see how we progressed after a few months in the game and kind of the next steps that I tend to take to progress the airline. So without further ado, just go continue game. You can see it's now April, we've done about 3-4 months in the game. My cash here is around 8 million. I'm a profitable airline now. You can see here my load factors are gradually increasing as my route image goes up. So we're just going to go through my income statement. You see I made last week 20 million in operating revenue. My fuel's quite a big chunk. I've taken that. The leases obviously will take a huge chunk as well. But overall, in all, you can see profits are good, 20% margin more or less, and these things will increase as I continue to grow the airline. You see my marketing spend is relatively low, 400k, which is very good news. But my company image is still increasing, so I'll take that into consideration. As and when that stops, I will increase my company image and my marketing spend. So the first thing you also want to check early in the game is income statement is not just cash. You should check your cash flow statement because a lot of the leases are prepaid up front, so it actually does, you make more cash per week. So if we were to look, so we got the aircraft lease prepayment, so I've ordered some new planes. You can see my cash situation. I keep investing my money all the time, so that's the key thing. You got to keep investing all the time. Just to give you another overview, I'll click on my airline name. Let's have a look at the graph. As you can see, positive trend. It keeps going up, and that's what we want to happen. Now, the one thing you shouldn't really get hung up about early on in the game is market share. Market share is very, very overrated early on in the game world. It's all about making profit. Profit, profit, profit. Because what you want to do is, you'll see I'm not even market share leader. I'm at 12%, the third in the market share, but that's because I'm flying bigger planes than the competitors, so I have less flights, so there's less passengers on my planes, but overall I'm making more profit, which over time allows me to grow faster than my competitors, and it's only a matter of time before I overtake these two guys and become the market share leader in this space. What you'll also have noticed yesterday, as I mentioned, there was 25 slots. That's already gone up to 30 departures per hour. So it creeps up early in the game, and eventually it reaches a plateau, and then it only goes up when the infrastructure level goes up. So yesterday I talked about pricing as well, and today we can have a look on how we should manage the pricing. So everything's still at default pricing for now, not made any changes. But early in the game, routes are not fully supplied, so you can increase your prices and make some more money to accelerate again that growth. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my routes page, and I view the routes by highest load factor first. This will eventually come. So here I've got a list of all my routes with the highest load factor. You see I've got a few in the 90s, quite a few in the 80s, and then the rest is all below, just ranked. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start selecting all the routes that are above 80-85%. I'll start with 85%. I'll be quite picky. So these top routes are all above 85% load factor, and this is what you can do on a weekly, every 2-week basis. Kind of recheck these routes and readdress the pricing upwards. I only do this for the first year in the game. Pricing, make the most profit as you can, but eventually these routes will get saturated, and if you keep the high prices up, these routes will eventually drop and get low load factors, so you will want to reset this up more. So I picked a few routes now that are over 85%. I scroll to the bottom of the page, and you can select here manage prices. So I'm going to adjust all passenger classes, increase prices by, as I'm going to do it weekly, I'm just going to be conservative, and I'm going to go 5%. So all these routes will have an increase of 5% on the passengers. Now you could apply the same for the cargo, but I'm actually not transporting too much cargo and my load factors aren't great just yet. So that's it really from pricing. So I've sorted the routes by load factor and just increased the ones that are highest, and I redo this in the first year, you know, on a regular basis. And some routes will keep going up and up in prices because you haven't satisfied the demand. So you're really maximizing your profits to reinvest that growth. The next thing I wanted to check is fuel. As I mentioned yesterday, contracts, I don't get them from day one. They won't be there. Well, they are there, but they're not good enough in my opinion. So let's see what today brings. You also remember I did a fuel hedge. We'll go see if that's been worthwhile or not. So as you can see, I'm paying $569. The current market price is $606. At the moment, it's mostly worthwhile, as you can see, but it's forecasted to start dropping. So there is a chance that in a few months' time, I'm going to be paying above market price. So probably the length of the hedge I've done is probably a bit too long, but time will tell. For the moment, I've done a good thing, but I fear that over time it might not have been the right decision, but we shall see. Scroll down to see the supply contracts. Remember, I was looking for a 4 to 5 year deal with 8 or 9% in that kind of range. Now you can see there's already deals that are 4 years, but it's not the desired percent yet that I'm looking for. So these have changed, but I'm still going to refuse from getting a selection there. I've currently got my airline, I spend, was it about 3 million in fuel? How much? I forgot what it was. Let's have a look. So 4.6 million on fuel. So this is my biggest spend in terms of my overall spend. It's about a quarter, just over a quarter of my overall spend is on fuel. So it is an important cost factor. So once I start getting fuel contracts, I will start to save more money. Just if you want to see how my airline is doing, what's the size of my airline? I will soon have 14 aircraft. I've got 2 7-day schedules and they're flying long haul. As you can see, majority to Europe, few to South America. Now, if we're also going to check, the next thing is the company image. So remember, we got the one marketing campaign. My company image is going up. Let's have a look. It's currently at 27. So as you see, steady graph going up. Means I've got no delays, things are running well. Now you want to check how that is compared to the market to see whether or not you need to do another marketing campaign. So the way I do that is I go to my name and I go to the statistics page. And as I mentioned in the other video, the rate early on is the same for everybody regardless of how much money you throw behind it. So you might as well do it efficiently. Interestingly, I've dropped behind, and this must have been, well, it's not been updated yet, but everybody is more or less in line with the same CI. I am not going to add another marketing campaign yet. I will check the next update to see if I'm back in line with the top runners. If that's the case, then that's fine. But if you suddenly see a few points are starting to scrap here, like if, let's say, you had a CI of 30, 35, and competitors are already showing 40, 45, you know it's time to add that next campaign. As and when you can afford it. Clearly, you can afford it. Just this way of doing the marketing, there's a few bases where this won't work. Bases like Hong Kong, Singapore, where you know there's no other airports in the country. It's kind of a standalone airport. It's a different way of doing the marketing because you don't have the whole selection like we have here with base city, municipality. What they tend to have is just the bottom 3, so you kind of have to invest a lot more up front, but then it kind of drags on for longer as well. So the more you spend, the better really, but you got to do it in stages. Talking about marketing, I've got a few route marketing campaigns as well, as you can see here now that I've set up. So those are for the last routes I created. We're going to check the route image. Some have already stopped, so see these routes here, they're all 30 and above. I will let these kind of progress now as it goes on. I did quite a short boost, but the routes tend to have quite good demand early on. My load factors are picking up, and these will automatically go to 100 as long as I keep flying the routes, which I intend to do. These are just new routes I recently created. I'm giving them a boost, so this sign here shows that you've got a marketing campaign on it. So these are just pushing the route image up as fast as possible, so those routes will get profitable as well. Okay, so I wanted to go back now to the statistics page, because you can actually get quite a bit of information from how you can determine how your competitors are performing. Now, some stats I tend to pay attention to see how well I'm doing, typically when I fly a long haul airline in the beginning, is some of the stats around this element here. Available seat kilometers and revenue passenger kilometers. If I'm ahead of my competitors, this is kind of a good sign. It shows that you're making good revenue for every passenger and kilometer flown, so you're getting a good utilization of your aircraft. As you can see, if I scroll down a bit more, the left side, my planes are typically in the air for 17.7 hours. It's worth noting that this page updates every 2 weeks. I believe it's on a Thursday in the game, and you can keep a track of your competitors as well, see how they're doing, so you can check the airline value, and you'll check how it goes up every other week, or every 2 weeks. You can check how much the airline value goes up by, and then you compare it to you, see what kind of profit they're making. But over time, I expect this, 52nd out of 232 planes currently. I expect my profits are going to accelerate as and when the route image keeps going up. My planes will get fuller. I've just started doing the incremental prices. My margins will creep up quite rapidly because the supply is not there yet in the market, so I'm still taking advantage of flying all the unoccupied routes. And every quarter you will see the previous tax and loss, so that's quite important. Another element is, as I said, you want to grow as fast as possible, so you always want to use as much of your cash to keep growing. So you got to look at the loans. After a while, you suddenly start to see that you can get unsecured loans. At the moment, it's still zero. As soon as you can start to get unsecured loans, you should take them. And typically, I get whatever value you can take here and do a 1-year repayment method. So nobody should have assets because we won't have bought any planes, but you got to use this money as like a snowball effect and keep getting the loans. Make sure that you can repay them, so the loan cost does not appear in your income statement, only the interest element do. So you got to keep a close eye on your cash flow statement. That's very important to make sure you got the cash flow to sustain the repayments. But at this stage, if you've done the kind of steps that I've done, this shouldn't really be an important factor. It's just a small cash element that's just slowing you slightly down, but you get more aircraft, you get to replace, get more profit and grow faster over time again. Yesterday I also talked about the 7-day scheduling. I was going to do another video on this, but actually I will cover it in this element now. As I said, I've got 14 planes flying right now already. I am going to add possibly one more at the moment to start my new 7-day schedule. So I'm going to see what aircrafts are available, and I will search, do a filter on common to my current fleet, and there's more and more aircrafts that are appearing. Now that I've got 14 planes flying, I tend to care less about the condition. I can afford one or two to kind of take a bit of time to get repaired. I just want to get cheap aircraft, so get more and more. Let me have a look at this A340. This is quite cheap, but let's see. Oh yes, and it's got I can get 7.5 year lease, and although it says relatively expensive, I think it's quite cheap because you'll pay around $1 million a month. It says 1.2 million, but if I go to 7-year lease, 7.5 years, because that's the duration till the D-check. Just note that I'm not going to get the D-check included in this one because this aircraft is already 15 years old. I do not want to fly aircrafts, especially passenger aircrafts, beyond the 3rd D-check. That's just the D-check, then it just gets absurdly expensive. As you see, as I said, but just over $1 million a month in terms of lease cost. So I'm going to go ahead, lease this aircraft. I'm going to scroll back up, confirm, and my cash should have gone down about 4.1 million. I could probably squeeze in another one, but I'll just wait for the day to turn, and I'll start doing a new 7-day scheduling schedule, right? So you go to route planning. So there's different ways of people planning and how they keep track of their routes. I personally use an Excel document, but you can just get a piece of paper and just kind of plan the 7-day concept. So the way the 7-day concept works is you typically need 7 planes, but you can start with one and build towards it. So you build it up, and as you get more aircraft, you assign a route. So essentially you will have 7 individual flights flying to the same destination at the same time, but on a different day, and they're spread across different aircrafts. So the way that happens is that over time you get a full schedule, and you just make sure that you put time in for the maintenance as well. And you will get better utilization. Your planes are typically flying overnight, so they're in the air overnight, so you're making sure you optimize the timings of landing and departures, because with passenger aircraft you really want to avoid at all costs any takeoff or landings between midnight and 5 a.m. It's even better if you go for those 6 a.m. to 2300 hours. If you take those into consideration, that's the best. It will give you the best load factors. If you have red-eye flights, landing somewhere, this is, you're going to really see it's going to impact. This is particularly for passenger. For cargo, it doesn't matter, but cargo will come at a later stage, as I said. So I've already created a few routes, and I showed you earlier in my route image. I am now starting to think about adding some more frequency to some of the destinations that I want to fly, especially the ones with the big demand routes like London Heathrow. So we'll start by this, and I'll show you quickly so this is in Europe. Note that most of my demand is to the big cities in Europe. I'm not flying to Asia as much yet because it's quite a long distance. Also, my A330-300s don't necessarily have the range, so I'm trying to keep that into mind in case I get more A330-300s. And for now, I still got plenty of routes to fly to. So as you can see, it's got the aircraft here, all the routes that I currently fly already. So I'm going to open Heathrow. And it's important you keep the spacing of 1 hour at this stage between your takeoff and landings. Now, if you use the same fleet type, it doesn't matter. So if you take 1 hour difference from takeoff, it will be 1 hour on landing, or if an aircraft has the same speed. So my rule of thumb is I tend to have the same fleet types on a route. I don't tend to mix and match, just because I want to make sure I keep the spacing between the arrival and the departure the same. So as you can see, I've got a flight leaving at 6:05 p.m., 8:05 p.m. and 11:05 p.m. and they land in Heathrow at 6, 8 and 11 a.m. So I'm going to create a flight just an hour before this one, so 22:05. So that's the first one, 22:05. So confirm this. We don't need tech stops at this era. So I select every day of my fleet group A330. Now it's very important you press this button. So this creates 7 routes rather than 1, and this is essential for 7-day scheduling because you will need to add 1 route to each plane. And I said 22:05, and as you will see, it takes the default turnaround time into consideration. I said 1%, and it gets back to New York the next day, 10 to 4 in the afternoon. Now, I'm not going to buy the slots just yet, simply because I haven't got the 7 aircraft. Now, if it's a slot restricted airport, you're going to get an aircraft very quickly, so you're not going to lose the slots. You might as well buy them already, but I don't have that luxury right now, so I'm just going to confirm that. So I've created the route without actually buying the slots yet, but the route's created. So my plane gets back now at 15:50. That means that my next departure time has to be, so yeah, 2.5 hours on that, so it's 6:20 p.m. is my next scheduled departure time. Now I'm going to pick another route. So this is the first, and I think eventually I will have 6 or 7 routes on this schedule. So again, I'm going to go to Europe because I want to have overnight flights, as you've noticed. So my flights leave in the afternoon, late evening, early evening, fly over across the pond, arrive in Europe in the morning, then fly back during the day, and they're ready again to go the next day. So I'm going to go London Stansted. It's got decent demand, I believe. If I have 560 passengers, so I'll probably need to boost that with route image. It's already supplied, but I don't care. I need to push my competitors, and as I said, I need to grow. Here we go. Again, it's the same process. I'm going to, very important stick, and it was, the next time I needed to leave was 20 past 6, I believe. Lands at 6 in the morning, 6:20, which is good. That's after 5 a.m. and 12:15, and I will just go confirm this route. So again, I didn't buy any slots. Now the plane gets back at 12:15. Now I want to fly to Europe mostly at the moment, so I will actually, after this 12:15, I will hold in a break in there for my scheduled maintenance check. So I'll do the maintenance, because remember I said you don't need to have the default turnaround time for maintenance checks. I will make sure that the minimum turnaround time is 90 minutes, by the way. So I'll make it at 1400 hours my maintenance check, which takes 5 hours. So from 2 p.m. till 7 p.m. is my scheduled maintenance check, going to be in this schedule. That means that I can take off the next flight after 7 p.m. I'm going to add frequency on my Amsterdam route. I believe those flights leave at 55 minutes past the hour. Let's have a look. Amsterdam, there you are. Let's have a look. You see you got one flight already. Yep, so an hour after it, so 19:55, my scheduled departure. This is going to be the third route on the schedule. So we have going through the same process, just scheduling. And as you said, you can keep track of this on a piece of paper or on an Excel spreadsheet. I'll show you some screenshots along the way as well of how I'm actually preparing this. And again, it comes back at 14:30 the next day, and you see it already shows you my route image is 43 on this route, so I've already flown it quite a bit. It's increasing, so it should get good load factor. Next flight is, because it's 14:30, I need to fly a bit further to avoid the 6 a.m. threshold, so I'm going to go fly a bit further east. So it will need to depart at 1700 hours, because it's 2 hours and 30 minutes after. Let me have a look at maybe some place like Turkey. So Asia. So it helps if you're good with geography. If you know where your places are in the world and your time zones, take that into consideration. 4,300 miles. That should be far enough to get there after 6 a.m. It's got demand. Okay, 260. That's basically one plane will cover that whole demand. So I will definitely need to do a marketing campaign for this route, because my load factors will be pretty rubbish early on. So set 5 p.m. and yes, it gets me there just at 10 to 10 in the morning and back at 16:50. Again, let's not buy the slots just yet. And confirm. So that's 4 routes created so far. Next one has to leave at 7:20 p.m. So you can see the way I'm just building this up, just to kind of follow on as it goes along. So the next route I'm going to build is Copenhagen. Nice European city. Again, 320 passengers. Nobody flying it yet, which is what I like to see. And so this is why it's important to have a good start. So nobody's flying the routes. You want to be the first one on there if you can. Get those passengers and make that money before the rest jump on the routes as well, and quickly accelerate. Now over time also the used market is going to dry up, and you kind of have to anticipate that. So when you start making a lot of money and you can't actually spend it on the used market anymore, you need to start ordering new aircraft as well. Just to bear that in mind. But now we haven't reached that time just yet, because there's still plenty of aircrafts available for me. And again, that's route number 5. Now let's fly somewhere different. Let's try South America. Again, I know if I leave at 10 past 5, if I fly far enough in South America, I should get there in the morning. Let's try Buenos Aires. I think that has enough demand too. Oh yes, nearly 600 passengers. And not being fully flown yet. So one thing you notice is I don't tend to focus on my competitors early on. Focus on your own airline. Just focus on what you can do. Control that. Focus on your plan and don't get distracted by you know what your competitors do. Focus on what you can control and stick to your game plan. If you see many players that start changing the game plan, start chopping it, and then just lose the focus and end up making mistakes. Yes, it lands at 6:15 a.m. comes back at 6 p.m. Brilliant. And we gotta do one more, I believe, after this. Okay. How about Russia? So 20. So I need to leave at 20:30. Neat. Remember, my first flight left at 10 p.m. 10:05 p.m. to London Heathrow. So I typically got to get back for about 7:30 at the latest. 7:35 at the latest to keep that gap. So I'll probably need about 4,000 nautical mile route, which I think Russia should be just about there. Yeah, Moscow. Let's do this one. You know, it comes with experience as well, knowing the kind of place you have to fly. 230 passengers is not going to be great for my load factors, but nobody's flying it, so I will. And it kind of fits in nicely into my schedule. So we're going to pick this. Is it 8:30 p.m. Need to get back by 7:35, and when do I get back? Oh, perfect! Look, half an hour leeway. Wow, we'll take that. That's pretty damn good. And confirm. Now, if you notice, I've created all the routes, but I haven't actually bought any slots yet. So what I do is I go to assign it. First thing I will do is get the maintenance check-in, which I scheduled for. Let's have a look. Do I have any? What's going on here? Oh, I still have to assign the previous. I've only got 13 aircraft scheduled because I was waiting for the other one to come in. So I typically tend to wait. Let me just do that first, and then I can just continue with where we are. So this is not part of the current 7-day scheduling. This is the previous one. So ignore this bit. Let me just complete this. I'll add these ones in, and then I'll continue on where we are. So I hadn't completed this, so apologies for that. So this is my previous 7-day scheduling that I had created. As you notice, I don't tend to assign the aircraft, the routes to the aircraft until I actually got the aircraft. So this is purely a bit of cash management, because as your aircraft has not arrived yet, you don't want to schedule it, because as soon as you do, you start to pay the staff cost, but you're not generating any revenue. But for this instance, I will do it. You see, I'm already created the slot there for Gatwick. But let's go back to the 7-day I just created for this bottom one. I will add in the thing. Here we go. So remember, it was on the Wednesday at 1400 hours I was doing the maintenance check, and let's start by doing that here. Let's put Wednesday 1400 hours, put in the thing, and here we go now. A Thursday and a Monday I fly to London. On the Tuesday I fly to London Stansted, and scroll down. On the Wednesday I fly to Amsterdam, and on the Thursday I fly to Istanbul. And that's from the first page. So I confirm. As you will see, look, it will start to add these ones. Then I will start to add the next ones. They've not appeared yet, so I've got to go to page 2, which is Copenhagen on a Friday, Buenos Aires on the Saturday, and Moscow on the Sunday, and back to me on the Monday evening. So you can see it's fully scheduled now, and as I get more aircraft, I just move it along, as you can see from previous routes. And once you get to 7 days, 7 aircraft, you'll have a full 7-day schedule in place. Now, as you can see, we haven't got any slots yet. We need to start buying slots, and I just buy them for the aircraft that I need. So I go to routes, and I go to view routes not being flown, and you will start to see all the routes that are being flown. And as soon as you can see a schedule with an aircraft name under it, I will then edit the route one by one. Tend to open it in a different tab, which you might not see all the tabs here, and then I'll just literally confirm, and that route's now been created. So I will just go along and do that all, and then once that's all done, all my flights will be fully scheduled, and they'll be good to go. One thing it might be good to check, so let's see if we can already see. Because it's an aircraft that's not arrived yet, we can't see how much good utilization is for this. You have to wait to get to the aircraft to be delivered so you can see how good your scheduling is. But I believe it will be in the 18-hour zone, 18-19 hours of utilization, because my plane's mostly in the air. So yeah, I'll just go ahead now and start getting all those routes, buy the slots, and then that will mean that that plane will be good to go, and in 2 weeks when it arrives, it'll be flying. Again, this is just a part of it. There's a lot more elements in terms of growing the airline. I will keep buying aircraft, keep flying. Over time, I will probably start to look at short-haul flights as well. 7-day scheduling principle works the same for short-haul. As long as you've got routes that you can fly overnight, then you can do 7-day scheduling. So typically I'd say you need around 1,500 to 2,000 nautical miles at least for this era to make it work, and fly across time zones and use the time zones to your advantage. Again, got any questions, just leave a comment. If you like this video, then press the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to keep up with all the latest videos and tips and hints that I'll be sharing with you. Again, thanks for watching, and have a good day.